Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 143. Has hate killed truth? Darkmatter2525 seems to think so. Where we're going to be responding to a request from one of our supporters, Richard Bier, where we'll be looking at a video from atheist YouTuber. Is that what they call themselves? I don't know.
Yeah.
Darkmatter2525. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
um,
Well, I before we continue, I'd like to do some thank yous. So, thank you to Anonymous for putting in that last $100 for our fundraiser over the weekend. So, thank you, Anonymous, and also thank you to let me see if they actually gave a name. Thank you to another Anonymous but a different person. So these are two different anonymi, if that's how you say the plural, who gave us $50. So thank you for that as well. And if you would like to help us out by giving us a tip, and also you can send a message with that tip and we'll read it out as a thank you. You could do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. That's feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And if you actually know that, if in the future I put together the monthly fundraiser, I haven't done it yet, but if you're listening to this in the future, then you could go to feedthebadger.com/support and feed us directly so we can continue to bring you this delectable content, which is, as I interact and listen to right-wing YouTubers, I'm realizing that our message is pretty unique. It is not a conservative message. It's not a liberal message. It is its own thing, I believe. And that message is, okay, well, civilizations require men's cooperation and contribution. And to do that, you have to give them a special value proposition unique to them. That means they have to offer something. They have to be recognized for offering something unique. And in order to do that, you have to say no to women. So you have to say, no, you don't belong here. You don't necessarily have these traits in the same measure. No. And I think that everybody has a problem with that, except here. Except we can't say
yeah.
no to Karen. So ultimately, we all bow down to the ineffable Karen at the end of the day. But everybody else can be said no to. Anyway, so if you would like to support that message, feedthebadger.com/support when it's up. And so those are the things, except for one more. Okay, I put this through the AI, and all it gave me was some really generic, pessimistic nihilism. And I was looking at this and I was like, what? Well, okay, is there something that's put a bee in his bonnet? Like something in particular? Could
Do you
you
want me to?
conjecture? Does he say it
Well,
explicitly? Does he say explicitly?
I mean, there isn't much explicitly said. He does go into a clip from a segment from I think his name is Roger Waters or something. He's like a anchor at Fox News, and he uses it as an example of this trend he's trying to talk about. But he really doesn't directly make any specific allegations other than we have moved away from truth and we live in a world where tyranny is celebrated and hate is mainstream and it's all over for us. I used to believe in rationality and common sense, but all the humans are stupid except for me, and therefore we're all doomed because of ignorance and all of that. And so, I mean, Richard, I want to know why you sent this to us, because I'm just going to put it out there, okay? Allison does not like to talk about politics at all. She avoids it like the plague. I don't know if you noticed, but she does not want to talk about it because it alienates people, it pisses people off, and really it would just be better if we just talked about men and women, because ultimately
Mm-hmm.
all of it spawns from that. Everything blossoms forth from the relationship between men and women, okay? Now, the reason why I think this is I want to know what your purpose in doing this is that the only thing I can presume, because I watched the video, Dark Matter has a problem because he is a liberal that is no longer seen as the arbiters of moral truth. That's what his problem is. And he doesn't want to let that go. He doesn't want to let it go because he, like a lot of liberals, and when I say it, I don't mean this in a derogatory sense. I'm being descriptive because Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, would have said this exact same thing. They simply believe that their worldview is correct. Like correct in every instance, and everyone who doesn't live up to it, there's got to be something wrong, and it usually comes down to them being like an intellectual, midget or moral failure, or they're full of hatred or whatever, because they can't come to the table like adults and say, here are my concerns, do you share these concerns, and then like listen to their response to that. No, they don't do that. Like Dark Matter isn't even telling us specifically what he's worried about, because I think in his heart of hearts, he knows he's wrong and he can't admit it. So his pride, his hubris puts him on this path of just saying, obtuse and like vague things about hate and tyranny and, people. And then he does this both sides thing a lot where, it's like, oh, everyone is doing that, but of course not him. He's excluded from that completely. Everybody else is like, throwing shit at each other in the primate cage. I'm on the outside because I'm, above all of that. This is the problem. So all I will say is he essentially just vaguely talks about how we live in a world where people want to be lied to and they want to hate, and there's so much division and blah blah blah. And he's like he thinks it's going to come to nuclear holocaust for some reason, and all of this. And it's like you haven't even spoken to anybody about this. You're just in your bubble because you're afraid to leave.
Head.
Yeah, and you're just talking about what you think you see. You know what it is? It's exactly the same thing that Natty does. It's exactly the same thing, except Natty's super religious and this guy is super anti-religious, but they're both on the same page when it comes to this not wanting to understand, like, that they might be wrong. Like, that's all it is, guys. That's all you got to do. Anyway, yeah.
Can I offer an observation? And this may sound like my both sides, so don't jump on me too quick. But I think that what's happened is the discourse has become about being right rather than searching for truth. And I see this from.
But okay, go ahead. Tell me how it comes.
I see this from. Well, okay, this is from both sides, and this is like I was listening to last night more of a. I don't know if they qualify as right wing, but they were part of the grievance studies thing. And,
they're totally liberals, but go on. They are.
Yeah, but they've come into the right wing, and maybe this is like colonization or whatever. But it's like there's this behavior where it's not about seeking truth. It's not about finding and truth is not necessarily about consensus. It's about persuasion. And not persuasion in a sophist way, but persuasion through as close as you can get to logic and reason. I know we're not all Spock. We're not all like AIs with pure reason and pure logic, but that is a goal to strive for. Just because we fall short of the goal doesn't mean we shouldn't have it as a goal. But we come together to try to find truth through this process of analyzing logic and reason as best as we can, right? And that has been replaced, the discourse has been replaced with wanting to be right. And I again, like Brian talked about how it all comes back to men and women. I think that is a very feminine impulse. It's like, it's not wanting to seek truth. It's not wanting to go through the meritocratic process of having your ideas challenged. It's simply being accepted as right, as if right is a performance. And the way that you become right is by getting consensus through the audience, and not through reason and logic, but through the performance of rightness. I don't know, something like that. Or just, in many cases, forced consent. And it's like, we could talk about the politics, but I think ultimately a lot of this is coming down to people who do that, people who are open to seeing the truth as a process that you strive towards, and that reason and logic is, you're going to fall short, but you should still seek it as a goal. And those who seem to just want to be right. And you know, I some of you might be watching my Twitter series, like my adventures on the platform formerly known as Twitter, but that is exactly what I'm dealing with and presenting in that series. It's that these people want to be right, and they want to be right so bad that they will turn themselves into clowns in the process. They will adopt the most ridiculous positions, the most ridiculous arguments. They'll refuse to see very simple and obvious connections between things just to be right, just retain their own perception that they're right. Right. So if they deny a very clearly stated argument, premise is correct, and conclusions, and the conclusions follow from the premises, and they absolutely deny the truth of it, that means somehow they're still right. And this is what I'm seeing over and over again. So it's like this behavior versus the behavior of understanding that you could be wrong, you could be incorrect about something. And I mean, people ask me, why do you do this? And it's like, well, because I'm always prepared to be wrong. Like I'm always, when I engage with people, I'm prepared to be wrong in the engagement. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen sometimes. And anyway, so I think that the real dichotomy is between people who want to be right, like that is their reason for engaging with people, and people who want to find truth, and that's becoming smaller and smaller number. And I see it on both sides. So there's them on both sides there. Although you can argue that some of the stuff on the right maybe imported, but it's like we're getting. But on the other hand, when you look at it in terms of male and female, this isn't a mob both sides. This is a society at war with its men that is gradually or even quickly losing the virtues that men present and champion. And that's why I think that we are losing this. And in that sense, you know, it's not two sides. It's, well, I mean, it is two sides. The side of recognizing the importance of virtues like merit and reason and logic as goals to strive for. And then on the other side, wanting to be right and wanting people to acknowledge you as right. And that somehow makes you right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I just want to say, just to add on, the grievance studies professors, I'm not trying to shit on them, but there are people who, and I remember I had Helen Pluckrose on the show like a while back. She
It
was
wasn't
one of
Helen
the main
Pluckrose. It
ones.
was
No, it was James
Lin-
Lindsay or Peter
yeah,
Boghossian.
yeah.
Yeah.
James
So
Lindsay.
so they're engaging. Look, and again, I like James Lindsay. I think he does good work when he does his research, but ultimately he is on the left because he is overly concerned with like the same thing that Darkmatter2525 is concerned with. There's this like space on the map that they don't know what's there. So there's like, there be monsters. There's a monster they're afraid of that may not exist. So they're engaging in a kind of containment. And I don't think that's not a right-wing thing, because what I see when I look at, I think that there's obviously nothing is like absolute. Like, our beliefs exist on a spectrum, basically, unlike, sex. And no, I'm serious. Like, some people think this is, like they believe this or that or whatever. But I think that ultimately the difference is more in line with what you're saying. I think there are people who are like, look, I just want people to come to the table, and I'm willing to have a conversation, and I'm willing to be proven wrong if we can talk about it. And then there are people who are like, I will not entertain this, and that's it, right? And I've seen it. Like, I've seen people who I met at men's rights conferences that I thought were super cool on the men's issue stuff, and they have completely like lost their minds on just based on other things happening, like what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on with, like, in our government or whatever. And I think it's because for them a line has been crossed, whatever it is, and they're in a place of insecurity because now their whole belief system is being called into question. And I do believe ultimately, I'm gonna try not to be like too aggressive, but I do ultimately believe that is a feminine instinct, a feminine mindset of because there is like if you know that you believe the right things, there's like a certain safety that comes with it. And when that like gets shattered, then you're suddenly not safe. And that's not to say that it's only women, but there's lots of men who are like Dark Matter is his video is very feminine. He doesn't get to the point. He dances around the topic. He's very passive aggressive. He implies a lot of stuff. Like, he doesn't say these people are bigots. He just suggests, he implies it. He impugns it passively. It's very frustrating. And I'm reminded of how disconnected we have been from a more, let's say, masculine frame of like having a conversation where there is like this damn what people think. We're going to talk, face to face. We're going to say what we believe. And that's going to be it. And if you're right, you're right. And if I'm right, I'm right. But like ultimately, when you have a conversation that way, the goal is not to look better than other people. The goal is to simply get to the truth. And it doesn't matter what people look like. And that's one of the reasons why, it's like the one thing that drives me to do this content is ultimately I want to have conversations. And frankly, the people who are willing to come to the table tend to be like more on the right, as in they're libertarian minded and they're masculine minded. Karen is masculine minded. Allison and Hannah are masculine minded. I'm not saying they're men, obviously, but their ability to like communicate is more in line with, I don't want to talk around shit. I don't want to use flowery language. I'm not interested in rhetoric, because rhetoric is like, it's like putting the ends before, like the ends justify the means kind of thing. For example,
being right is more important than conveying information.
It's like winning the conversation as though it's some kind of duel. Even if you're using lies or manipulation or half-truths or manipulative language to get there means that you're right. And it's like, no, it doesn't change the truth, right? So, yeah, and I see that all the time. Like, I think, for example, I don't know if you know about this, but I bet people in the audience, you guys know who Hassan is, right?
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. Let me try to stop. They are talking point machines.
Shut up.
They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory.
Well, he brought the cat over.
Holy shit, you're fucked.
Enjoy some of me trying to wrangle the cat.
Hassan. He is a good example. He's obviously a bread tuber, very popular. Twitch threw a birthday party for him. Twitch, okay, even though he's openly like said, like America deserved 9/11 and all that. But when he had this beef with Asmongold, who's like this, normie game YouTuber guy that has just kind of got dragged into Gamergate stuff, and he's been siding with the gamers because he is himself a gamer, and he's becoming very popular. And Hassan's beef with him has nothing to do with whether or not Asmongold is right. It has everything to do with whether or not Asmongold is an effective propagandist. And that's literally the position he argues from. So we are, I think ultimately it comes down to people who are interested in what the truth is and people who are interested in winning the argument. And the people who are interested in winning the argument obviously don't think the truth is that important. And this is why it frustrates me when I watch this Dark Matter video, because ultimately he doesn't even know what his opposition believes because he doesn't talk to them. And Carl made a video like a little while ago. I think it was something about reaping the whirlwind, where he basically, said everything that I've been saying for years, which is like, this is happening to you. We're talking about the left. All of these things that are happening to you, all of the defunding, all of the cutting out the fat and the waste and everything else, and nobody's listening to you anymore. We're done with this woke shit. We're just closing all the programs. We're getting rid of all of it. It's your fault, because at no point ever did you come to the table and negotiate. And the reason is because you were so sure that you were correct 100%, and that everybody who didn't believe what you believed was evil, that you just double down and double down and double down, and now we're taking your toys from you. And that's what I've been saying. It's like, it's going to come to that. Why does Andrew Tate exist? Why does Andrew Tate exist is what I've been saying. Because men have been shit on for decades. And at some point, somebody's going to come along that's going to offer them something that looks like respect. And I'm not saying he doesn't. I think that I don't know anything about it. It doesn't matter though, guys. It doesn't matter. Because
you're not defending
I'm not, but it doesn't matter either way, because the question is not whether or not he's good for men. The question is, why does he exist? Because you have allowed things to get so bad for men that they're basically just like, fuck it, we're going to follow this guy now. Instead of coming to the table and saying, what do you need? Instead of saying, we're sorry, we treated you like shit, you just keep doubling down. Why did Kamala Harris lose the 2024 election? Because they shat on men constantly. And when it was time, when they realized that they had to do something, they had no idea what to do. Because they got so accustomed to shitting on men and expecting them to just give them votes that they had no way to like lure them back. They were like, and even when they talked about it, they're like, well, what we need is someone who represents us, but they like we need to address their issues. No, we don't want to do that. What we want is to make them think that they need us, so we're going to trick them, and it just didn't work. And that's where we are now. This has always been the masculine frame versus the feminine frame. And the feminine frame has been in prominence for so long that when we see something masculine, it scares people because they don't know what it looks like. They're not familiar with it. So that's where we are. I mean, so
okay, I'm gonna just briefly maybe turn on the cat's
bird sounds.
Maybe that will satisfy her.
Background noise.
Yeah, she'll be satisfied. Oh wait, she's sitting down. Maybe we can continue the show. You see, everything is ruled by Karen and cats. That's the ultimate. Okay, so what I was going to say, and the thing is, I know people get offended when you say that masculine versus feminine frame. But the thing is that we haven't evolved beyond our mammalian brain. I'm not even sure what that would look like if we did. So men and women do have different approaches. I mean, the science is very clear. And women's approach is more performative. So they want to be perceived to be something, whereas men tend to be more inclined towards wanting to know the truth of things. And I mean, both are not wrong. I mean,
they have their place, but it's been very lopsided.
Yeah, it's been very lopsided, and that's the problem, is the disbalance in the way that we've been conducting ourselves. And the fact that for some reason we got it in our heads that the people who constructed modern civilization, which is men, they were the ones who innovated, the ones who built it, and for the most part. That's not to say that prior to the Industrial Revolution, women didn't have an incredibly important role in perpetuating society, and et cetera. But we're talking about the current era. That they and the way that they approach things wouldn't be essential to making sure our society works. And we've just decided that it's like going to another culture, and they have a way of doing things, and they have a technology base, and they have run it for centuries. And then we just decide and say, well, I think we can do it better for no other reason than we're just better than you. I mean, that's really what's happened. And it's not just women going into the workplace. It's women going into the workplace with the attitude that they do not have to listen to the people. I'm not even going to use men, the people and the culture that created it. Like that's a problem. And I think that this discourse is part of it. This moving the discourse from trying to seek truth as something outside of yourself to seeking the interior experience of being right, and prioritizing the interior experience of being right, which is what I am discovering with my Twitter adventures. People who prioritize the internal experience of being right, the performance of being right, then they do actually being truthful, and not just being truthful, but not looking like a complete ass in the process. And it's and we have not even watched a single second of this man's work.
No, I know, but I wanted to lay the groundwork because he doesn't say a lot. Like I said, he talks around shit a lot. So, but we can play a bit of the beginning, and then you'll see what I mean. I don't know if you watched it, but yeah, I guess we could start listening to some of this. So, I will say that basically the male perspective, and I'm not saying that men, I'm talking about like a more male-centric perspective has not really been in prominence for a while, but it's changing. Like, comedians are telling the jokes they want to tell. You know, people in power are saying they're speaking their mind, and they're not afraid. They're not like couching it in shit. And the people who are like threatening to go to war, by the way, that's not the masculine frame. Just saying.
Oh,
Okay.
good Lord. Like, and I've been getting into arguments over women's role in starting wars. I've been saying, who's been agitating for the latest war all over Twitter? And you think that this is different? Women always beat the drums of war. And if a war is unpopular with women, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I suspect that another white feather campaign is going to happen. I actually have a feeling that might be the case coming very soon.
Okay, I will say this. In the Ukraine, all right, there has been, the thing is that women seem to respond in a variety of ways. The massive majority just responds in terms of their own safety and their own attitudes towards what they expect from men. There's the extreme that engage in like rad femme levels of contempt. And then recently I heard that there was actually a woman who suicide bombed one of the recruitment officers that are currently abducting Ukrainian men. So, I mean, there are obviously women who will engage in extreme acts because they care about the men in their lives. But they're a small minority. Be nice to take that small minority and somehow figure out how you make it a big minority, because if every woman in the Ukraine, or in Russia for that matter, suicide bombed their officials when they engaged in forced conscription, there would be no war. None whatsoever. Like, could you imagine that, Brian? Could you imagine an entire culture or an entire race of women who are like, yeah, you take our men, we're going to go suicide bomb you? There would be absolutely no way to use war, to use men's bodies to solve political disputes. It would just be over. But and so that is a response. That is a response that women engage in. It's just so minute that it doesn't move the needle. Okay. All right. I just wanted to point that out. It's not like women are across the board, just like, yeah, ha ha ha. You're going.
No, of course not.
I'm going to go find myself a German husband. You know,
yeah,
like.
But I mean, either like, and again, I'm sure that women have lots of different opinions on it, but like, it's men that are going to go to war. At the end of the day, it's men that are going. It doesn't matter. Like, there were men in their 40s that had to fight for Ukraine. And it was like almost, I think I heard, and I don't know if this number is right, but it might have been like a third of Ukrainians died. What of that third, how many were men? Like, does that not matter? Like, and again, like, but there are people, oh no, we got to win. Well, what do you mean? Like 600,000 Russians died too. Like they're men, by the way. Like, I know people say Russians or Ukrainians, but we're talking about men that are dying. And because somebody says, look, we got to like make peace. Well, who are the ones saying that, no, we should like go take this all the way? There are people who completely have lost their mind about this. It's like they forgot that there are people who are killed, and those people are men.
Okay, this might come across as a criticism of Trump, but what has ultimately happened to Ukraine seems like Russia has taken one half, and then the US has ended up taking another in terms of its mineral rights. And I don't see any benefit to the country to any of this crap having happened. And it's unfortunate because I think that the Biden regime was probably in some ways responsible for all of the hairy crap in that region. I just got our channel demonetized, and it's like
it's not monetized that really anyways.
Yeah, or I just got us kicked off. And it's like I don't know what to say.
I think there's a tactic to putting Americans over there, though, to work, because then they're less likely to push in further if there's American workers, like construction workers and stuff, occupying the land. It might be a tactical thing. But yeah, I mean, like, it's a mess, but like, what are you going to do? I mean, when they didn't even invade until Biden got in office. So what does that mean? And, but
well, because it like, here's the problem. It's almost like you get two different flavors of, I don't know, insanity But regardless, let's move on. I don't want to like
All
you
right.
like you
It's all
said.
right.
I don't particularly like talking about politics because it alienates people. And although it does actually draw a lot of eyeballs in my experience. People love that crap because it makes it concrete what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, it's like putting it in focus. That's what I see. Discussing what's happening in the world as an opportunity to talk about, like, to sort of bring in the angle, you know, that we normally focus on.
Well, Sean Doe says, "Do you care this much about Palestinians?"
No, we don't. I did
again and pounding drums.
Oh,
that's like something that's so old. It's I would
John Doe, just relax, okay? Yeah, I mean, I'm not over there, but obviously there are Palestinians that are men. Actually, most of the people in Gaza are women and children, but probably a lot of boys because that's all that's left. And yeah, I think it's a travesty. What do you want from me? You want me to go down and strangle Bibi Netanyahu for you? Is that what you want? Because guess what? I can't do that. Okay? All I can do is talk about things in the way that, well, whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Minecraft, like, Brian.
He's just like, why aren't you talking about the thing that I think you should be talking about in the way that I think you should be talking about it?
Yeah.
And it's like, this is our show. We have our topics, okay?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
If you want to make videos, okay?
Okay, yes. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, I only touched on the Ukraine briefly because I wanted to talk about forced conscription, women's responses, and women's role in engaging in
that's the real topic. I mean, Keir Starmer's talking about putting boots on the ground. And that's going to affect the UK. So if I bring that up, am I like ceasing, like, am I deciding not to talk about your particular pet group of people? Like, in whatever way that makes sense, my advocacy for men does not have limits. It's just wherever. Yours, by the way, does have limits because you don't think cops are men. You don't think they're people, for example. So just, stow it. Okay. Make videos, do your thing over there. Leave us alone. I got videos to make over here about men, all of them, no matter what. Okay. Yeah. No matter what their skin color, no matter what their language, no matter what their religion, whether I like them or not, I'm going to talk about all of them. Okay.
Yep.
So anyway.
Yep.
So let's listen to go ahead. Yeah,
sure.
I'm sorry.
No, let's actually listen to some. Let's stop.
Yeah, let's start the video. I don't want to argue with the chat. I'm not. I've made my point.
Yeah, you did make your point. I've been dealing with something similar over on Honey Badger Radio. Somebody who wants me to put my name and face to their white lives matter rhetoric, and I'm like, well, but the thing is that I'm not interested in separating black men from white men in terms of advocacy. I will if they have different things that you need to advocate for relative to them. But I think that all of this shit starts by separating men and saying this group is more important, this group is less important. Let's condemn this group. And I'm not talking about not condemning people who do engage in criminal activity. But yeah, I advocate for men. It's been one of the hardest things to do is to keep at that advocacy for men, because there's so much invitation to start fractionalizing and saying, no, I don't advocate for this group of men. I disagree with.
Well, that's the point of that stuff. That's the point of it is so that you're now talking about a small slice instead of like looking at the big picture. Like there are men everywhere, and they all like maybe the challenges are different, depending on the culture. But I mean, men are men. So yeah, I'm with that. I don't give a shit about the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't care about the White Lives Matter movement. I don't care about, the whatever it is, it's just like, I'm just gonna talk about it in the ways that I think make sense for me. Like I live in the United States, so this is like the country I'm particularly focused on. So
yeah. All right. So let's keep going.
Okay. Let's watch the video. Let's listen to the beginning of it.
So much of what we do now is simply for the love of hatred. My hope for you is gone. I'm not just sad for you, I grieve for you. We live in a world where tyranny is celebrated as the answer to tyranny, and corruption is lovingly embraced as the answer to corruption.
What is okay? Can like I said, he's I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means. So I'm not really sure what. That's why I'm Richard Pierre. What is he talking about? He never said.
No, I don't. No, seriously, it's okay. We don't have to talk about the specific politics he's talking about because it's almost like freaking. Let's go into Gnosticism. But before we do, I just want to explain why I'm not at my desk. I am actually attempting to rehydrate my cat's food so that she will enjoy it more. And then I'm also going to put on her little birdie thing, and hopefully that will make her feel a little bit more comfortable while I'm talking, so she can go listen to some birds. And I'm doing it all out of my love for my cat. So there you go. There's not a complete absence of love in the world, Dark Matter. People.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, never mind. I'm just gonna. It means he's so smart. Yeah, he does. All right, I'll play some more of this.
That's a problem I can't solve. It can only solve itself through self-destruction. And for the longest time, my instinct was to react with fervent devotion to the truth. That doesn't work anymore. I was brought up to believe that the truth always wins in the end. And people made claims, and sometimes those claims surprised me. So I researched them, and in many cases, I found out that those claims were false. I'd then announce to the world that this is false. But does that really matter anymore? The truth is...
So somebody was wrong on the internet. That was basically what he's claiming. Of course, he doesn't tell us what it is that was false. We just have to accept that he knows for 100% sure that he debunked somebody and it's been debunked, but no one seems to care. He's like the meme of the guy standing in the back of the room in the corner at, during the party saying nobody knows that I was right on the internet. And I don't like, again, I don't know what you would call it. These claims that are being made, this story we're being told, we just have to accept it. Like, there's no like, here's what they said and here's my evidence against what they said. No, I mean, maybe that he just says, well, I looked into it because I thought it was wrong. And it turns out I was right 100%. Trust me, bro. And then I told him I was right, but nobody seems to care that I was right. I'm not going to tell you what it is that I found out. You'll just have to believe me because I'm smarter than everybody else. So
I'm the rightest man in the room.
It's like, yeah, it's purposefully vague so that you can't refute it. It's like, well, I can't refute it. You're just saying shit. So, what's the point of it? Is to basically justify, I guess, what is coming. Like everyone makes false claims, and I don't know. It's like somebody was wrong on the internet.
I guess, and also that means that love has left the world.
Yes, obviously.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
Let's lost. Now, when I announce falsehood, the response is very disconcerting. The liars and the people being lied to have ceased to be predator and prey. Now, they are allies. They embrace the lie as truth itself, even if they know it's false, because they see it as a means to an end. They simply don't care about the truth anymore. All that seems to matter to them is that their side wins. Their side can do no wrong, and the other side can do no right. Nothing else matters.
So this is exactly what you were saying, except, like I said before, I've asked many people to come on my show, right-wing people and left-wing people, and to talk about men's issues honestly. And some of them I have had disagreements with, but right-wing people have consistently come on the show despite the fact that we may not see eye to eye or agree on everything. And lefties were way less likely to come on the show, although sometimes they did. But he's making a claim that this is what's happening, but only like when he says, "Oh, well, sometimes I'll come and they'll just agree with the liars." Well, maybe they're right and you're wrong, though. Like maybe they have evidence and you didn't want to look at it. Like you're not sitting at the table with anybody. I don't know that I can respect that.
Well, he's not explaining what the specifics, right? This is some really, I don't know if at some point he gets into the specifics, like he brings up the Twitter argument that
Nope.
sent him into the spiral of despair.
Nope.
No, okay, so it's like this is very, and maybe he is just calling out behavior like we were initially. And one of the things that what I said was that people want to be right more than they want to seek truth. Maybe that's what he's referring to. But this is so vague. It almost feels like
I'm not sure that that's right, because you yourself said that when you get into arguments with people online, you go in prepared for the possibility that you could be wrong and that people would be willing to, like expand your mind in some way. Maybe like when I try to bring, like, I'll go back to Natty for a moment. I had her on twice because I'm like, you're so devoted to this idea. I feel like I need to know. Maybe I don't understand it. Maybe I don't get it. And I've had her on twice, and it's like, okay, now I think you just you're just looking at the world in a different way than me. Yeah, and a lot of this is based on feels. Like she's like, I feel as though this is going to happen. And it's like, okay, well, you're allowed to feel that. I'm not going to say you can't, but now I understand for sure that in my view, you're wrong, and it's okay. And maybe you'll understand that. But but I'm prepared to be wrong, though. Like that's how you have to enter these conversations. But I don't think Dark Matter is prepared. That's not what he's coming from. He's saying, I'm right, and nobody seems to get it. So this is despairing me because it means that people are no longer are like in my, cult or whatever, like my belief system. It's not shared by enough people.
Doesn't it?
He's on because
he's on the hill of righteousness, and everybody else is his enemy.
Right. I mean, and also remember, yeah, go ahead. No, it's okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, I don't know which one of us should go. All right. That's honestly, that's a mindset that it's easy to get into. That you are right and everybody else is wrong. And especially when you have, I know he has 885,000 subscribers.
Yeah. Well, he's been doing this a long time, and he started with animation.
Yeah, and also there's some distortion going on with subscribers and viewership based on algorithmic thumb putting on the scaling. But ultimately, this is something that you have to contend with. And I have gone through things thinking, okay, well, I'm the one who has all the truth, and then I just have to go and I have to listen and try to figure out where people are coming from and what's going on. And I've said in the past that I think that when feminists express the ennui and the angst that women feel, they're correct. The problem is when they attribute it to men.
Right. Well, yeah, women can feel all kinds of ways, and I wouldn't say that their feelings are not real. But they should also ask themselves if it makes sense for them to be feeling the way.
Well, I mean, it may actually even make sense because they have lost a lot of their purpose, right? But that's another argument. What my point is that people are right in their own ways. Everybody is.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily right about what's happening to everybody, but they're right about their experience, and you have to, it's my both sides can go two ways. You can be like, well, this side A is wrong, side A is wrong, side B is wrong, or side A is right about this, side B is right about this, right? And that's the way, I know that I sound like I'm on both sides, but I do see things that, for example, the left is right about. Their approach is not going to get them anywhere. And I do see things that the right is right about and wrong about, and the left is wrong about and right about. And I see that a lot of their conflict is coming because the discourse has really, it's deeply entrenched in, I want to be right versus I want to find truth. And the right maybe has an advantage because at the very least they're trying to continue with something that has worked in the past. So that makes a bit more sense. You know, if the car's broken down, maybe trying fixing it with methods that have worked in the past makes sense. I'm not so sure that this particular car can be fixed with those methods, but that's neither here nor there. The idea is that when you get in that headspace where I am the one who's right and everyone else is wrong, I think you need to step back and think about asking yourself, how are the people around me right? So that you can break out of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can totally see that's despairing because, you know, for example, narcissists have that attitude often. I am right, everyone else is wrong. And that leads them to be very alienated from the people around them. Right. And the only way to get out of that is to listen to people, to make an effort to understand where they might be right, and to connect with them on a personal level, to get out of the idea that you're part of some gigantic conflict in which people who disagree with you are not human. They are human. Like even the crazy wokies, like even the crazy gender fluid people, everybody on the spectrum, they are dealing with something that is real to them. And they're dealing with it in a way that makes sense to them with what they have. Yes, there is grooming and all of that stuff. But there is some deeper stuff going on with our society and its ability to generate a sense of purpose that is leading to these kinds of reactions. And until we address that deeper problem, we're going to see these kinds of reactions, right? And if you just deny or ignore this, then it's not going to change. But anyway, like when you get into that state of despair that everybody else is around you is wrong, I would advise this man and anybody else who's in that state to just really think about who you think your opposition is and see if there's anything that you can agree with, because you are cutting yourself off from humanity. We are all humans here, every single one of us, even the crazy man with the fake boobs and a dress, right? We're all humans. We're all having this experience and we all have reasons for what we do. Let's find those reasons. So, and then when we find those reasons, maybe we can find a way of understanding each other and a solution that works for everybody. And yeah, that's what I would advise when you get into these snarls. And I have myself been in some really dark places. That's the darkest though. Like I'm the only one who understands. That's like
it's Twilight Zone shit, like the ending of a Twilight Zone episode, right?
Yeah, that's like it's complete isolation. Like you are on Mount, you are a hermit on Mount Lonely in the plain of Mount Solitude, or the plain of solitude, and like yeah, that's not a place where humans live. Well, sorry guys. Okay.
I just want to say, Joe, because he never gets specific, so I'm kind of forced to speculate. So consider this all speculation. But let's look at what we know about Darkmatter2525. So Darkmatter2525 started his channel like at least probably more than 10 years ago. And he would make these animated shorts about religion because he was an atheist YouTuber. He still is. And that's like a big part of his whole brand and his online persona is his atheism. It's front and center, okay? Specifically, atheism against Christianity, but I believe he also went after Islam in videos as well, because there was like a period in time there where, you know, all the atheists had to make a choice because, okay, so you had atheism online and it started off and it was basically like going after the Christians because they're like the lowest hanging fruit. It's kind of easy. And then you got to the point where Islam was like in ascension online. And then the atheists had to make a decision. Do I criticize Islam or not? And so some did. Like that's how you get the 4 horsemen and stuff, where they're like, oh, these get the, you know, the king of bad ideas or whatever. And some played it safe and they sort of went another direction. That's sort of around the same time that there was a divide between the social justice atheists, the feminist atheists, the atheism plus atheists, and then the sort of, you know, more principled atheists that were just like anti-religion or whatever. And a lot of this was anti-theism. It wasn't a kind of indifferent atheism, which probably a lot of people who are atheists have, is this whole like, well, I don't really care what you do. It's just not for me. But then there are the people who are like, this has to be like, debunked and expunged from our society because of all of the problems that religion brings. So this is what Dark Matter had been doing for most of his online presence. And for a little while, he started to see the sort of feminist social justice aspect of atheism become a real thorn in the side of people. And he went to confront them because, well, if you asked him, he would say, well, it looks like religion to me, so I'm going to go after it. But he was also worried that it was going to like drive people away from atheism, because that's ultimately what he cares about most, is perpetuating atheism. This is what I think based on what I know. I don't watch all of his content, so I could be wrong, and I'm speculating. Take this all with a grain of salt, just what I've observed. And then the political landscape started changing, or at least it appeared to. And I think this worried him. This is what worried people like James Lindsay and other, trigonometry, all these like sort of like, centrist-y liberals that were like, oh, I was totally fine with fighting against the intersectional feminists and stuff, but I don't want to get rid of feminism altogether. It's that, Allison. That's really what it is. There's like,
I can explain why that's a big problem, but
well, it scares them because they don't. There is an assumption, and this is like what people like Dark Matter would do, is they would use feminism to promote atheism, because they'd say, well, look, these people who are religious are terrible to their women. And it didn't matter if it was Muslim men that were terrible to their women, which is sort of like an easy thing to do. It's low-hanging fruit. Or if it was Christians or Catholics that were terrible to their women, they would go and promote that message. So they would use feminism to support their atheism. And when it looked like feminism was becoming really unpopular, along with intersectional feminism and everything else, then they had to step in and rescue that, because it's like a status quo in their mind. Like, I want to live in a world where we respected women all the time, but there was no God. That's what we want, right? Whatever that looks like. And I think that what's really concerning him now is that men in particular are becoming more vocal, they're becoming more politically active, and they're entering the church in record numbers. And when I say the church, I don't mean Protestant churches. I mean Catholic and Orthodox churches. Like, men are going to church in record numbers because they're seeking out meaning, and they're willing. This is also the important thing, because I've met all kinds of new young dudes going to church, and when I talk to them, they're all like, I'm doing this for myself. And that's the reason. It's like, I don't, the world is a mess. Women don't make sense to me. I'm going to do this. And then like, hopefully I'll meet someone. And yeah, they usually meet a woman in their church, but it's not the Protestant churches. It's mostly the Catholics and the Orthodox. And I think that because men are doing this is really freaking these people out. So Dark Matter is worried that men are, seeking out meaning. Women are not as much. So, they're basically becoming more and more sort of freewheeling, sexually liberated and secularized, which is fine. It's their decision. But the men have made their choice too, which is why, women are not finding men on the dating market as much, because not only are they checking out completely and they're just like, I'm not going to deal with this anymore, but some of them are like, well, let me seek out some sort of spiritual answers to my questions. And these old, like, atheists that used to be edgy and cool, like, in 2012, they're like, well, what happened to my audience? And he's still got like almost 1 million subs, but I think he's very concerned. And I think that's where it comes from. So it's not just, oh, I might be wrong about some abstract argument I had on X, but I might be wrong about humanity because they're doing the thing that I dislike the most. And I think that might be, that my guess, my speculation is that might be an issue, because he's just become way more vocal. And again, men, they're worried about their soul at this point. And I think that makes sense. So
yeah, well, they're worried. Like, there's a desire for a purpose. I mean, I'm not as concerned necessarily about the Orthodox, but I don't know, the Catholics. They
But
what I think men are looking for is, again, that unique value that they add
they want to be needed. They're looking for something to do, and
for something to be needed for. Yeah, exactly.
And
that's
and
uniquely
honored
male.
for.
That's uniquely male.
That's uniquely male. Yeah.
And that's not in very large supply in all of these sort of. And here's the thing: like, you have all of the secularism, but the secular still needs to give a purpose to men in order to attract them. But the purpose that it gives, and I was just recently reading an article, is basically service to women.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like, but at the same time, you have no unique quality to offer women except to serve and do what they say, and to sacrifice for them. And it's like, well, that's not a very attractive statement, to say that there's absolutely nothing unique about you except your service. Well,
yeah.
That's really ugly.
It. For feminism, and to a degree, gynocentrism is a cornerstone of modern secular humanism. Like, I don't know if it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm not saying, like, repent now or anything. I'm not pushing anybody to do anything. I'm just saying this is like the literal frame we exist in now in the West is that. It's that framework. It's a feminist framework at its core. So, like, when men are like, you know what, I'm not doing that, and they're going to go do something else, and the environment is different. And I'm not saying that, like, the Catholic Church or even the Orthodox Church is immune from feminist influence, because trust me when I say there are women trying to change both of those places right now, and it's taking all the strength of the church, of the men in church, to stop it, or at least, like, hold it off. So it is something that is going to be a constant challenge no matter what.
Well, but why? Okay, all right. Let me just put it this way, and I think I know the reason why. Because, well, first of all, in the secular system, there can't be anything unique to men, because then you have to exclude women, and you have to say that there is some kind of value that men have that women don't, or don't as much, or actually have to learn from men, right? And we can't do that. Like, you can't do that in a secular and atheistic system. I mean, the problem is that they'll say, well, we don't think that women have unique value. Bullshit. You don't think you have women unique value. That's bullshit, because what you do to square that circle is you give women value by saying they're victims of history. Right? And men can never be victims of history. And I think that's why, men's issues ended up in the memory hole first, is because it dives right at the heart of this whole kind of ideology. And what I mean by that is, when you frame women as victims, you frame men as either saviors or villains. And this is the construct. But at the same time, everybody gets defined by their victimhood. Everybody. And then this is the kernel of the entirety of woke social justice intersectionality. You get women to define themselves as victims, and they do that to allow women to have their unique value, because victimhood gives you moral cachet. It makes you right? No matter what, if you're a victim, you're right. And I've seen this with women. If they lose on a point of reason or logic, they will trot out victimhood, their alleged or perhaps actual victimhood in the past, in order to say that you can't be right, essentially. So victimhood has become a currency in our society because women have adopted an identity of victimhood. And I think that they bring it into the church because that identity of victimhood gives them moral authority over men. And that's where that what you're talking about, Brian, that's where that comes from. They do not want to recognize that men have a unique value proposition and that women might need to learn from it. We might call that submission. Perhaps another way to put it is trust and learning. That you respect this person, that they have their own way of doing things that might be important for a healthy society. It's trust and learning. And I guess women just don't want to do that, or that there's some kind of natural inclination in women to just not want to recognize that men there exist and have evolved for a reason. Like,
thanks to women mostly. Like,
yes.
I mean, we are as we are as men because of the women who came before and the choices they made when it comes to their fertility. So,
I mean, if human women weren't the way they
anything
were,
that you can say about men is your fault, ladies.
Yeah, and or also in some ways to your credit, because if women
or to your
hadn't
credit,
selected for
right?
cooperation and
Yeah.
between men, we'd still be chimpanzees, and
Yep.
chimpanzees absolutely hate each other. And I think this guy wants to bring us to that level. Maybe.
All right. Let's play some more of this. But my theory is that ultimately, he is. It's not so much about politics as it is so much about his atheism that he's trying to like preserve, because it's like his brand, and he's very concerned. And of course, he thinks that religious people are stupid and bad to their women, which is, I mean, that's like the primary argument that these people make. So remember, when you say, like the framework of who victimizes the women, it's usually done under the assumption that men are abusers, and that they're looking for a reason. And in the eyes of people like Dark Matter, religion is the reason, is the vehicle that allows that. And of course, if that didn't exist, men would not do that, I guess. No, they probably still do that, and we would just have a different set of problems. But it wouldn't be the fault of atheism in that case.
They don't understand that the sides themselves are contrivances. In our current world, the truth doesn't matter. Duty and honor doesn't matter. Material reality itself doesn't matter. All that matters now is that your enemies are humiliated and defeated. There is no price too high to achieve that goal. So at this time, sacrificing the truth seems like a small price to pay, because nobody seems to understand how high the interest will make that bill when the due.
Yeah, I wonder if he like realizes how much he's benefited from supposedly telling the truth. It seems like YouTube likes what you say, Dark Matter. They don't like what we say. But
due date finally arrives. And nobody seems to understand that in a world where the truth is sacrificed for victory, defeating your enemies means defeating yourself too.
What?
Well, I mean, he's sort of correct. It's the same thing that I've been talking about. It's just that I don't know. I don't know. Okay, let's.
He's not applying it to himself, Allison. He's applying it to his opponents. So he's still doing it.
It would actually be more honest if he said where he stands and what he stands against. Like, I mean, I have to give.
He stands for being right. He is correct, but everyone else is only interested in being correct. But he literally is correct. You see. That's no. I mean, I'm not. That's what he's saying. He's saying everybody seems to be more interested in just winning arguments than like seeking the truth. Fortunately for all of you, I have actually won the argument because I have actually found the truth. And that makes me nothing like the people that I'm criticizing, you see.
Yeah, but lay it out. Like, so you're telling me this is 23 minutes of him saying, everybody but me is wrong.
He blames social media later on, which is, I think, again, that's just cope. Like saying, oh, it's social media. Like social media gets into all of our brains and makes us do things like talk online about our beliefs. Like that's not what it is. He's kind of like making a lot of confessions about, oh, other people are so terminally online. Yeah, but so are you. And he's even said it, including me. And it's like, oh, so you're talking about yourself. And because you found a flaw with yourself, you think, oh, well, everybody else must also be going through this too, because I am at least as good, if not better than everybody else. See, it's just hubris from beginning to end. But if you want, I can jump ahead to the social media trap. or the psychological battlefield, which is what I guess he talks about. Let's go to that, I guess, here.
Sorry, I'm under attack again.
By a cat.
Katak.
Joke with each other about outlandish claims. We'd sarcastically ask, "Where'd you hear that? The internet?" Or announce, "It's true because I heard it on the internet." And it was understood as a joke because it was so obvious that you couldn't just trust any post on the internet. We all knew that. Back then, the internet was mostly a place for the tech savvy. It was a world of nerds, dorks, and geeks who, for all their faults, were intelligent enough to foster a healthy dose of incredulity when it came to the internet. But all these years later, as I stood outside myself, watching myself diligently collect data, a grim realization struck me. This isn't the internet anymore. This is social media now. This isn't about data anymore.
I want to point out that he's walking in the woods holding his phone out, pointing at the side of his head to create dramatic, like walking in the park, being introspective, thinking about the universe, the truth of the universe and everything, and talking about how, like, back in my day, we were right about everything on the internet. Again, no amount of humility, no like, oh, maybe I was lied to, maybe I didn't have it all figured out, maybe I was wrong, and maybe they're onto something. Well, not even going to tell us what it is. He never tells you, by the way. Don't wait for it. Don't expect it. Watch the video yourself. He never at any point tells you what specifically he is for sure right about that these chuds are for sure wrong about. Never says it. We'll just assume they're chuds and he's right because he's Darkmatter2525. And I have a little bit of sympathy too, because I think that if you get really big on YouTube, you really have to be worried about buying into your own cult of personality to the point where you start thinking that you can't be wrong because you have a bunch of people telling you that you are not wrong. And I think that's a real thing that you have to be concerned with. I mean, you can like think about like, I don't know, any like supposedly intellectual skeptic. You remember the skeptic community? Skeptic YouTubers that got a big platform overnight, and everybody who followed them, they had their followers that would just tell them, "You're the best, you're awesome, you're smart," etc. This is why I cringe at that stuff, and I know Allison does too, because you have to constantly be vigilant that you don't start buying into that. You have to do your best to remain humble because, like, I don't know shit. I mean, I just like to talk about the stuff. So, main character syndrome. Uplifting music. Is it though? I think it's more like depressing music, but Allison, are you there? Do you want to say something? You're muted if you are trying to talk. The one. Yeah, he is the one.
Really sorry. I'm really sorry. I think the cat just, I don't know what she does.
Your microphone.
Yeah,
hello?
she just.
Oh, yeah.
She just walks by the microphone and then it stops working.
She is a black cat.
Yeah, she just like magically transfers her bad luck into the freaking machinery and everything stops working. Like, I'm sorry, guys. Just I'll keep seeing if I can get this to function. How's that? Is it back to normal?
Yeah, it sounds good. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Like I have yet to figure out what it is, what she is doing. I don't even think she's jiggling the cord particularly, but she does something. She just walks past the microphone cord and then everything screws up.
Because she's a black cat. And black cats
she's probably a federal agent, actually, come to think of it. She's part of the Alphabet Agency.
Yeah, she is.
She's been recruited by the feds.
So go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's sort of cringy, honestly. I'm like watching this.
For sure.
I'm cringing my ass off.
He's got
I'm
dramatic
like,
music and
how does this
everything.
add to anything, my dude?
Dude, it works, man. Like, he's got people just like eating this up. And I'm like, but he doesn't say anything. You know what it is? So the interesting thing is that he is ultimately projecting. He's saying that his enemies are only concerned with being right, and they're not concerned with whether or not they are seeking the truth. And he's saying this while doing the thing that he says that they're doing, because he doesn't actually say, well, here is my evidence. And he also claims, oh, I used to do, when I was on the internet, I did my research, I did my due diligence. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe you did, but like, how do you know the people you're dealing with that you supposedly don't agree with? How do you know they also didn't do their research? Did you talk to them? No, you didn't. You just presumed that they couldn't be right. Like, for example, there is a guy that debates a lot online named Andrew Wilson. He was on a stream with Paul Elam and a couple of other guys. I think Timothy Gordon was another one that was on there, and they were talking about men's issues. And Andrew Wilson goes wherever he can to debate everyone all the time. And he doesn't do it with rhetoric. He basically lays out his arguments plainly. I spoke to him once, and people have asked me to get him on the show a few times or whatever. I've been trying to get his wife on because she wrote that book about feminism, and he is somebody you could debate on any topic. And Dark Matter has not at all once spoken to him, and it's probably because he would get demolished. Because Andrew Wilson does not play around with rhetorical games. He basically comes with the facts. That's the thing. Like, he comes with the facts as he knows them. He can argue from any perspective. He wants to. It's like what he lives for, okay? And Dark Matter does not do that. This is the difference that I see. There are people who are willing to come to the table, and there are people who don't want to come to the table. They want to shoot from, the arrow slits on their tower, and they want to sling shit from over there. And then, like, when you respond, they basically call you like a freak or a weirdo or something. So, I get that that's not how whole subsections see it, but who cares? They're wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, the big problem is he doesn't make a position. So how? Thing is,
this is
a completely new form of sophism, which is like, I'm not going to take any position. I'm just going to call out every other position. Are you sure you're not being driven by the desire of being right?
Yeah,
like,
and
to
then
the
he
point
tells
where you won't even present a position.
Then he tells us that we're all being psyoped by the system, by the internet.
The world around you is, and it all affects you. So there is no unplugging. There is no true sanctuary.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I'm not sure any of us realize the extent to which our heads have been messed with. But make no mistake, your head has been messed with.
That's projection. So his head's been messed with, and he wants to make us all think that our heads have been messed with. But I go out, I touch grass, I talk to regular people all the time in real life. I met up with Arvis Owens, the guy who I've been doing interviews with his military buddies about false allegations in the military. And I said, so since you live in Virginia, let's meet up for lunch. And I met up with him and Paul Elam, and we sat down and had lunch and talked. Like, I meet with people in real life. I don't live in a bubble. You're projecting. Like, that's it. Like, you're projecting, dude. Like, you're telling us that you're trying to gaslight us into thinking that we're the crazy ones because we don't agree with you.
With what, though? This is the ultimate
in
level
some
of
abstract way. Yeah.
You're just not even presenting a position other than I am right.
This is like ultra instinct sophistry.
I am right about X. I am just right. I exist in the liminal state of rightness, and you all have been corrupted by the system. Like, this is some Gnostic shit. I think that's why Richard did it. Some serious Gnostic shit. But what
we're
does
all prisoners of our mind and the internet.
Yeah, but our actions still matter. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah, but we can't really control them. I don't know. Yeah.
A popular influencer base his political reality on the substance of a single unsourced tweet. Bizarrely, he was around during those early internet days. He, of all people, should have known better, but he didn't. Or maybe he did know better, but knew that others wouldn't. So I collected all the data showing how that tweet was wrong. But what was I doing? Why was I doing this? Was it all just a waste of my limited time? The tweet was an accusation against his political opponents, so that's all he needed to justify his hatred and desire for them to face misery. The tweet was...
Wait. But okay, so spoiler alert, he doesn't actually show us the tweet, so we don't know what it's about. All we know is that that person was wrong. But how does he know that they were also full of hatred? Like, how is he, like, is he a medium? Like, is he, like, in his mind? Why do people do this? Like,
he's not only in the very epicenter of complete epistemological rightness, he also is right about everybody else's subjective experience. Okay, this guy is starting to frighten me, to be honest. Maybe this is why Richard sent it to us.
I don't know.
Okay, Richard, you've discovered a terrifying specimen of something. Yeah, and he doesn't even do the honor of telling us his position, right? Or showing us the evidence. It's just,
no,
I'm right, and I get
this guy.
I'm right.
He's been on the internet forever, and he was really wrong, and he did it because he hates his political opponents and delights in their suffering. So what happened specifically? Well, you don't need to know that, but you should know that I corrected him and he didn't.
By what means are you convincing me of your position, sir? Because you're not presenting evidence. Okay? You're just presenting your experience and apparently your advanced knowledge of other people's intentions. Like maybe healer heal thyself here. This guy's a little bit scary. So he never actually gets to a point that he could be like, he never presents something that could potentially be wrong.
No.
That's one of the things.
No,
like, it's like these individuals never present something that they could potentially be wrong about. And if you prove them wrong about the things that they present, they absolutely refuse to consider it. But he's in his own category. He's not even presenting a position.
Yep. All right, I'm jumping ahead a bit. So let me just play this.
In even more lies. What does a person like myself do when the lies are easy, profitable, and satisfying?
You know what this is?
The truth.
He is confirming the bias of his audience. That's why he's got almost 1 million followers.
Yeah.
He's speaking to these feelings of rightness, absolute rightness. Everybody who disagrees with me is wrong. It doesn't matter what my actual position is. I'm not going to talk about that. It doesn't matter because it's about performing rightness. This guy is performing rightness.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was trying to get at earlier when I mentioned that, you know, when you have this many subscribers, you have to be like wary of like, you know, potentially get into a point where you're just sort of serving them and you're basically just giving, you know, and then it becomes your identity because I think it's a performance for his audience to make them feel like they have their brains, like they're rubbing brains with his brain and just a little bit of brain rubbing, a little bit of, you know, heavy petting amongst like brain matter that they're like, oh man, I feel so smart because I watched this guy's video and I totally get it, bro. But there's nothing in it except these feelings of superiority. I don't know, like it's not just being right. It's about feeling superior. I mean, in my opinion, anyways. I mean,
yeah, no, and this is the thing. He's created he has created sort of a passion play in which his audience can see themselves in it. It doesn't matter the particular position. He is encouraging the emotion, the feeling, the interior feeling of rightness. You know, I spoke about that before. I didn't realize how accurate it would end up being. What he is performing is the interior feeling of rightness. He's a man performing an emotion for his audience, and he's encouraging them to stay in that emotion regardless.
And calling that emotion logic, by the way.
Yeah, and regardless of what they actually believe. He's encouraging this crappy behavior. Actually, this may be why Richard Beer sent this to us, Brian. He doesn't actually take a position. He's literally encouraging the being emotionally right, sitting in that place where it doesn't matter the truth. What matters is that you feel right. I wonder what that feels like, because every time I think, oh, maybe now I've got it, there's a voice in my head that says, no, you're an idiot. There's no way you're right. Sounds like my mother. No, I actually, yeah, that's a bit. That was a joke. And it's just that there's this voice.
It's all right.
This voice that always says, no, Allison, that's arrogant. You don't have the right to think that you're right. And then I go back in and I'm like, okay, let me see if I can find any other part where I'm wrong. Go back to the logic. Let's go through it. Let's unpack every bit of it. Let's go to Twitter. Let's find people that disagree, see if they can find something and not sound like complete loons when they do, you know? And that's me. I don't think I trust that feeling of being right, having that experience of being right. And this is what he's giving to his audience, is the experience of being right. I wonder if his audience is mostly female.
I don't know. I would think that most of his audience are male feminists. That's what I would think. But
it's interesting
they want to be like the
he's not
male sea lion or whatever.
He's not associating a position with being right. He's simply presenting the interior emotional experience of being right. That's almost like this has been the addiction all along, being addicted to that interior emotional experience of being right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily about what you were saying. It was that you could get people to agree with it, even if it was profoundly wrong. And, you know, and of course the left could get people to agree with their essential fundamental precepts because they fall in line with our own inclinations, either whether or not they're born socially from courtly love or Christianity, or, well, I don't think Christianity, or they're just born from modernity. It just falls in line, or they're biological. It just falls in line with this feeling that men owe women something. And they could always get people to agree because they could just hit those buttons. And now maybe that's getting more difficult. So they just have to sell the experience of being right. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. It's cope.
It's cope.
It's cope.
Brian always just brings it down to one word. It's cope.
Well, it's cope. That's what it is.
Cope, like, what in a world where they're being
why would you? Yeah. Why would you make this video? So when did he make this video? 12 days ago. Why would you make this video at this point in time about this topic if you weren't just coping? Like, just coping with the way things are, and you don't like it for whatever reason. I don't even need to get into specifics, but I can tell that there's a lot of cope here. And the problem with the cope is that there's no desire, because the cope is basically another way to avoid the consequences of where you are. Like, which is essentially the desire to understand, well, first of all, the desire to admit that you don't know everything, that you might be wrong, and that maybe some people that you don't like have a point. And that's it. Like, but if you don't have the will to do that, then you're just going to do whatever you can to cope. And some of that is just going to sound like this, where it's basically just standing in, like you said, just in this embodying rightness for rightness' sake, to avoid the what could be very painful, which is the idea of being wrong, cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, and what's happening now is there's some serious wrongness going around for the left. And I'm guessing that there is a big market for just embodying the emotion, going on the roller coaster ride of being right, the amusement park ride, having the experience of being right. You know, I think that there's actually a marketplace for that.
And there's also other concerns, like if he does admit that he's wrong, he could lose his livelihood. Like he could lose all of his followers. He could lose money. He could lose opportunities. So what
it does
choice
feel
do you
very
have?
performative.
It's very painful, and I understand that. But like, well, the truth always comes out eventually. So, and maybe, like, I'm willing to say this. Maybe the truth has yet to be revealed still. So, like, I'm okay, and I'm okay with that. Like, that's what I'm saying. I'm prepared for that, and I've been saying since for a long time. Yeah, for a long time, I've been saying that things aren't going to change until there is significant suffering. And not that I want suffering, but that's sort of a consequence of avoiding the truth, is that you will suffer. And then when that happens, every individual, when they have received a significant amount or a sufficient amount of suffering, is going to be standing at a crossroads where they're either going to, go with what is true to alleviate suffering, if anything, or continue to double down on the lie that you're living and then continue to suffer more. And for different people, that has different outcomes. You were talking about earlier, how like people are living as trans people, and that is in its own way their cope. And it may work out for them. I think in some cases that's true. But I think for others, they're going to have to like, figure out what the truth is. And maybe the truth is that this isn't really a solution and that there's something else that they should be doing. And until they suffered sufficiently and made a decision about the future of their life based on, like what their suffering is, they'll either make it right. So you have like people who detransition, for example. A lot of women are doing that, or they continue to double down until like their life goes into a complete spiral because they didn't want to reevaluate, and they end up in a rationalist cult where they murder a bunch of people. I'm not saying those are the only roads, but I'm just saying like that's the nature of truth. Like you have to like be on the lookout for it, and that requires humility. It requires it of you, and because like otherwise you're just never going to get there. And I think that dark matter here, the fact that he's being vague is very telling, is all I'll say. It's very telling about whether or not he's willing to take that risk of like, well, let me, what's going to be best for my brand and keep me like above. Yeah, it is a bit of cowardice, I think.
And I think it speaks to what I said. This is the performance of being right, so that you can vicariously experience the emotion of being right. And the funny thing is that anybody who seeks truth, I don't think they're comfortable with the emotion of being right. They doubt it.
No,
that's why Socrates was like, when he went to the oracle, they said, "You're the smartest man." And then he was like, "What the fuck? You've just laid an existential mind trip on me."
Yeah.
Like, then he just started doubting everything even more. It's like, I don't think people, like, honestly, I don't think people who are really seeking the truth are comfortable with the feeling of being right.
Yep.
And this guy, what he's presenting here is the feeling of being right. Do you think there's anything more that we could possibly get out of this chunky nugget?
I could play a little bit more of this, and then
well, before you do, let me just point out, I have worked diligently in the background while listening to this man turn rightness into a performance piece. And I do have our fundraiser live. It's at feedthebadger.com/support. So if you want to help out, you can do so there. I know it's really early in the month, but might as well get it out there so I can shill it during our streams during the month. So if you want to send us a message, and nobody has throughout all this, I would have thought this would have been of interest to you guys to just give us a heads up on your own thoughts, but do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. We get the full benefit of whatever funds you send, and you get the benefit of having a comment not go through YouTube's comment thresher system, which threshes out whatever vague thing that disquiets YouTube today. So feedthebadger.com/justthetip to send us a message. Do that, please, guys. Really appreciate it. And feedthebadger.com/support to help us out. All right.
All right. Let's listen to the next bit.
Is difficult, impoverished, and depressing.
Impoverished. Okay.
It's like holding a sword by the blade and trying to slay a million. Impoverished and depressing.
It's like he's trying to write like really emo, black metal.
Yeah, right.
He's just
he's doing it for his Linkin Park cover band. Crawling in my skin.
Crawling in my rightness, Brian.
Yeah,
crawling in my rightness. Under attack by the wrongness. Barrage, the explosive barrage of the wrongness. I know you're probably quoting something, but
it's the title of a song. Okay, so let's play some more.
When the lies are easy, profitable, and satisfying, while the truth is difficult, impoverished, and depressing. It's like holding a sword by the blade and trying to slay a million dragons by frantically hitting them with the pommel. Stop. You do no damage to them and draw only your own blood.
What the
Everyone is credulous about all the things they should be skeptical of, and skeptical of all the things that are true. It's maddening.
This man is either is a fucking genius. That's terrifying. I say this. I mean, everybody's like, "Oh my God, this man is a genius. He has discovered his audience's pain point, and he is selling them on it. He has discovered this insecurity that they might be wrong because of everything that's happened in the American electoral process. You know, I'm not going definitively saying that we're now on the way for a utopia or anything, but it has to have really shaken the left's sense of themselves, this profound loss. And he is selling his audience a panacea. Is panacea the right word?
Panacea.
Panacea.
Or
a placebo for their pain point, which is that they are facing wrongness. So he's simply getting up on stage and he's saying, I shall enact rightness for you.
Yeah.
You. And you will feel right. What does the fish do? You know, that kind of thing. That's what he's doing. This is what he's doing. He's enacting the sensation of rightness. He's enacting the sensation of being besieged by the gross hordes of wrongness.
Yeah.
In order to emphasize the feeling that his audience is right. He's identified their pain point and he's selling to it. Man is a genius. Despicable.
Some
people, but very, very brilliant. Okay.
Yeah. Some people, I think,
what did the
want things to get worse so that they can claim that they're right. I think that's partly what's going on here. Like, they want things to get bad so that they can say they were right. And then we've seen this. Like I think Bill Maher said on his show once that he hopes we go into a recession because it would prove him right about the Trump administration back in the 2016 and 2020 days. There are people who want us to go into World War III because then they get to say they were right. They want a dictatorship to happen because they get to say they were right. And that's like how addicted people can be to being right. And my thing is, we'll see. I don't think it's going to happen. We'll see. And so I sit back because I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Who knows how long we have to live? And this makes me think of like this line I liked a lot. I saw in a talk where somebody said, what is evil? because it's one of those words that nobody wants to define because they'd rather keep things like relative. But there is such a thing. And this person said, evil is when one assumes that all of their knowledge is complete without taking into account the transcendent or the unknown, and they act on that knowledge, and it immediately puts them into a place that is no different than hell itself. That is what. So evil is that it is acting on knowledge, but more than that, arrogance about your own knowledge. Like if you say, how much where does the whole trust the science thing come from? When Dr. Fauci says, I am the science, what does that mean? Like,
I am the science.
That's evil because he's saying, I understand everything. And what has that wrought upon us?
Yeah.
What has that done? So it's that. It's like, why did C.S. Lewis, when he used to write stories before Chronicles of Narnia, he wrote a lot about the villains were always scientists. Like they were mad scientists. That I think he was trying to touch on that thing where there was people that thought that they could, that they had all knowledge, and that was constrained to this one. Just not to say that there's nothing useful about science. That's not what I'm saying. But it's comes down to the simple idea that you are certain that you know everything, and that and then you're going to act on that without considering the transcendent, or if you want to put it in another way, considering the possibility that there is something you don't know, and then you act on that. So anyway, this is the last time code that I have here. I mean, he does go into like essentially like his solution, which is for him to just keep making videos. So subscribe and support him on Patreon and all that.
Well, I mean,
old as civil.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. I can't fault him for that.
I don't he's claim that we're gonna save the world and that and you know, but
I think everybody should try to strive towards making the world better, right? Saving it, I don't know, but I strive to try to present things that I think people will find helpful. I just think that what he's done. Are you playing a bit more?
Yeah.
I'll save it for the end then.
Okay.
Yeah,
just civilization itself, and we keep falling for it. So what hope do I have of stopping it now? If we're busy fighting each other, then we're not rising up against our masters. That's the whole point. That is the current state of affairs. And it's a state of affairs that was deliberately arranged by our masters.
Okay, so he says if we're fighting each other, we're not fighting against our masters. Again, doesn't define who those people are. I bet if you asked him and you had an idea of what you thought they were, you guys would probably have different answers. So it kind of makes this a moot point. And is he even calling to like work in cooperation with people he disagrees with against a greater enemy of some kind? Because he doesn't say that. He actually sees the people he disagrees with as the enemy. So what does this mean? Are you fighting the masters or are you fighting the people again? What are you talking about? Like, again, it's not defined.
No,
as long as we keep believing that it's left versus right, then we'll never understand that it's actually up versus down. That's the point. Listen to this Fox News host, Jesse Waters, proudly boast about the tactics that are being used to destroy the truth. Forget his left versus right framing. That's just WWE noise used to divide us. Instead, pay attention to the tactics he highlights.
Dana, we are waging a 21st century information warfare campaign against the left, and they are using tactics from the 1990s. They are holding tiny press conferences.
All right, let me pause here because he's not giving context, okay? So this is Jesse Waters at Fox News. I don't even watch this channel. I think most people don't watch like mainstream media anyway. But so this is specifically talking about the whole thing with Doge.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's what it says right here on the screen. Day of Doge, left holds nationwide rallies to protect government cuts. So what is Doge doing to government jobs? You guys ready for the answer? It's removing the waste, the fraud, and the abuse. It's not just firing everybody. It's firing the positions that are wasteful, fraudulent, and abusive, that are not useful, that are a burden on the taxpayer. By the way, taxpayers, overwhelmingly men. So this does affect men, okay? And now so a government job is not like a poor, third world child or something. A government job is basically a job that is, in many cases, expendable. We don't need it. Most of these jobs are just filler jobs because it's like you're spending someone else's money on people you don't know or care about. So how are you going to spend that money? This is important. This is the context that he's talking about, okay? And he's talking specifically about how the narrative, how the conversation around government waste got from, people online and memes and social media people on YouTube, the independent journalists, how that got to the people of the United States who voted for this to happen. Like, the people voted for this overwhelmingly in support of it. Men and women, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They wanted this. They knew this was something they wanted fixed, and they did this on purpose. So first of all, I want to give you the context. Second of all, notice the music that he's using in the background, because it's not this music isn't playing on Fox News. This is just whatever Jesse Waters talking over this. So I'm just pointing out the context. I don't know if you want to say anything about this, Allison, before I play the clip, but
yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Well, I want to also point something else out. If he's going to say that this is some kind of, the left-right thing is some kind of like WWF kind of thing going on, why is he then turning around and saying, well, look at how the right is slamming the left over the head with a folding chair? How dare? Like, look at the tactics that they're using. Yeah, well, I mean, you've already said that's within some kind of sporting event. Who cares about the tactics that they're using? Like, are you really? And also, what specific? Okay, well, at least we have something specific here to go on, right?
This is the only thing that is specific. But
right,
it is, yeah.
He's specifically calling out a rhetorical technique that's being used here. Now, so far, I haven't heard one. What is? Oh, because he's talking about this individual is talking about strategies. So he's saying that the left is not effectively opposing the right's strategy because they're using an older strategy. Okay, but what is that even a rhetorical? Is that even a rhetorical trick? Just saying, well, this is the strategy we're using, and this is the strategy the left's using, and the left strategy is insufficient. Like, that just seems like an observation. You could say, well, no, I disagree, but of course, you'd have to face the fact that objectively, I don't think that the Doge is unpopular with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of people who don't
very popular. Like, it's not, I mean, I think he would probably argue that people who are against government programs to, like, I don't know, like cover beagles' heads with fleas so that they eat them slowly and kill them just to see what happens. I think that most people would say, yeah, I don't want to put my money towards that. I don't want to put my money towards, queer dance theory in fucking Uganda. I don't think
queers want to put their money towards that.
Yeah, I don't think Ugandans want that. Like, it's not like he wants to have his cake and eat it too. Like, he wants to be able to say this isn't a left-right thing, but he's really only going after what he calls the right, which isn't even really the right, because if most Americans wanted this, maybe it's not partisan. Like, if most Americans are like, well, yeah, I mean, the ones mostly against this kind of stuff are the people who actually themselves work for the government, or they benefit from government programs and they're afraid of losing their meal ticket, i.e., women and single moms.
Okay, but again, what he's calling out is the so-called rhetorical trick. Let's see if there is one.
Yes. But I did get a super chow. So
cool.
I got a super chow from Sean Mao. Thank you, Sean Mao, for $5. And he says, holding by the blade and using the pommel is a valid medieval weapon technique. Throwing the pommel ends them rightly. Well, thank you, Sean.
Yes,
I didn't know that, but thank you for telling us that. Yeah. So he doesn't even understand medieval martial arts techniques.
You can actually hold
Shame on you.
You can actually hold a blade in a way that it doesn't cut you.
Yeah.
But of
I don't
course
know
he
if
didn't
he
know
was
that.
thinking of like a katana or something, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but regardless, like, yeah, he didn't even know what the hell he was talking about. But of course, he would reject that, I think. And we're not getting what he's trying to say.
Yeah. I know what he's trying to say, but anyway, let's listen to this. Pay attention, like I said, watch for the emotional manipulation. This whole thing is emotional.
Yeah, but
tiny little rally.
What I want to point out is maybe we should bring it to the beginning, because we need to find. He's saying that they're using a rhetorical trick, right?
Yeah.
It's probably at the beginning of the lump. Okay, right there.
He's explaining the what he's about to play. Okay, I'm playing it now.
Left versus right framing. That's just WWE noise used to divide us. Instead, pay attention to the tactics he highlights.
Dana, we are waging a 21st century information warfare campaign against the left, and they are using tactics from the 1990s. They are holding tiny press conferences, tiny little rallies. They're screaming into the ether on MSNBC. This is what you call top-down command and control. You get your talking points from a newspaper, and you put it on the broadcast network, and then it disappears. What you're seeing on the right is asymmetrical. It's like grassroots guerrilla warfare. Someone says something on social media, Musk retweets it, Rogan podcasts it, Fox broadcasts it, and by the time it reaches everybody, millions of people have seen it. It's free money. And we're actually talking about expressing information. They are suppressing information.
So look at how he's framing it. And he's also trying to claim that this isn't a left-right thing, but he's saying that they're lying. So like when Joe Rogan is lying. And by the way, Waters is trying to for Fox to take some credit, but literally by the time Fox learns about it, everyone who needs to know knows. Like they're always late. Nobody really watches them. They're not relevant. Ever since Tucker Carlson left, they've been in the toilet. But I get it. They're coping too. This is just cope from Fox. It's fine. I'm not really a Fox guy. I never was. But the way that Dark Matter is framing this is important, because he is claiming that when this organically goes, and he doesn't think it's organic because Elon Musk retweets. Like I said, it doesn't even, I don't think Elon Musk learns about it until all of the main movers and shakers online have shared it around a bit. Like Karen makes a post, every day she's posting. And eventually someone that follows her shares it. I mean, that's just the nature. Why did, how did hashtag Gamergate go viral? Elon Musk didn't retweet it. Jack Dorsey didn't retweet it. It was just enough people were just doing it, and it organically happened. I think what Waters is trying to say, that it's more organic in terms of its bottom up as opposed to top down, which is true. But Dark Matter is claiming that what they're doing is lying, and what we are doing, what his side is doing, what the top-down people are doing, what legacy media is doing, is vetting them. And they're saying that it's suppression, which it is, because we're suppressed. Like our positions are suppressed online. But he would say that we're lying, and that feminists who respond to us or that block us, or when the Department of Homeland Security puts us on a list, oh no, that's just vetting. You see? So he does have a side. He does. He just doesn't have the balls to say he has a side, because his side is wrong.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, it's being seen as, but that is interesting. So he's essentially, now we know why he's calling out social media. For some reason, social media is not good. don't fling yourself.
It's letting too many people talk that he doesn't think are qualified to talk.
Yes, and giving them signal boosts that he doesn't think they're qualified for. Okay, and then but media is vetting. Then why do you have to yourself put these little things in to tell me what to think about this? This is dishonest. So if I'm to make this very charitable, what he's essentially saying is social media is bad, it's lying, and establishment media, almost universally owned by large corporations and billionaires, is vetting, and it is true. That's what I'm supposed to take from here. Now, I know that social media itself can also be manipulated.
Sure.
But it is a lot less easily manipulated than media, which is owned by like a half dozen large corporations.
No, it's like three.
Three large corporations.
Like 3 corporations own all the media, and they all go to the same parties, and they all know each other, and they all talk to each other. And yet that to him is more credible than individuals sharing their opinions online and doing their own research and sharing their research. And by the way,
voting on those opinions,
and voting on those opinions. And by the way, the people who are the most successful at that tend to be the ones that are the least censorious. So like the people who block people or kick people or whatever, they don't tend to do as well as the people who are just like putting it out there and being open. And I think that over time, it doesn't happen overnight, but I think over time, you know, you have enough people who are trying to be honest, they will eventually win out, in my humble opinion. So
okay, well, yeah, I think that he's shown his hand a bit here. Even if it's not a left-right thing, it seems like it's well, social media comes as close to basically public voting as we've ever come.
Democratized as
versus
close
just receiving
as it has been.
Just receiving information from 3 large corporations. But I think ultimately what's really coming down to this is, again, it's a performative of rightness. You don't have to make an effort to be right when you just receive information from above. And I think there's a tendency towards human beings to want that, to want to align their opinions with authority in order to generate that feeling of being right. I wonder if there was ever any interest in looking at the social currency around being right, around feeling self-righteous, and how institutions use our desire to feel right and feel self-righteous in order to manufacture consent. I'm using a Noam Chomsky term.
Noam Chomsky, yeah, no, I know.
I haven't gone full left hard for. Don't worry, folks. Just using some phrases that I agree with. But yeah, like okay, so is this basically the money shot here, friend?
Basically, I mean, like he ends by saying, you know, I was gonna quit, but now that I've made this video, I've realized that the fight goes on, and so I could play a little bit more if you want, but I mean, that's basically the gist of it.
Yeah, but you know what? Just make more content. If people like it, they'll watch it. Do you really need to justify yourself?
Well,
I mean,
his videos were, well, I'm saying his content was built on, I believe, the foundation of debunking religion, right? And so his whole thing is just debunking, which makes his channel inherently reactionary or reactive to other content. So I think that what he needs to do is maybe make stuff that's more about building something, because if people, the only reason why the reactive content works, or the witch burning, or whatever you want to call it, is because people are frustrated and they want to hear someone who, like, you know, connects with them in that way, but it doesn't have it doesn't have a lasting power, right? Because over time, if people's lives improve, then they're going to be like, well, I don't need to watch this anymore. So maybe he's doing that because, I mean, maybe he needs to change his content, is what I'm saying. Because otherwise he's just going to be fighting ghosts. And the truth is that he's probably going, if things do get better, And I think that there is a vibe shift, and I think that a lot of it has to do with men sort of like, doing their own thing. Then he's going to lose people unless he like starts doing something that's a little bit more, I don't know, growth oriented in its creation. I mean, he can keep making whatever he wants. I'm just saying, maybe he needs to change his focus.
Yep. Yeah, maybe give people. The thing is, you can do both sides and be like, both sides are wrong. But how many people do both sides and they're like, yeah, but both sides are right in a way? Because that seems like it's the beginning of creating some kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, you could come to the table. That I think that would be good. That would be creating something, is what I'm saying. Like, have Carl on, talk to him. He had him on before when Carl got kicked off of Patreon a long time ago. And I think that they did a talk together. And at that time, Dark Matter was sympathetic. Why don't you just talk to him? I mean, I'm sure that you probably don't like him very much because Carl's positions have changed since then, but maybe you'll learn something. Maybe there's a good reason that he went that way. So, but I don't think so. I think he's just going to do what's safe.
Yep.
Mostly.
All right. Well, I mean, honestly, like if you just look at this in terms of identifying a pain point for his audience and then selling that pain point, this is genius. Like, honestly, I've got to give him a clap for that. Like he knows his audience and he knows the pain that they feel. And he's really pushing it. He's giving them that feeling of rightness that for whatever reason, the events of the last few months has been shaken. And they're starting to lose perhaps some of those authorities that in the past were giving them that feeling of rightness. So now he's filling the gap with this kind of little performance. What the fish do. Fishy, fishy, fish. Like little performance. To make them feel right without having to actually question themselves and think about whether or not they are right. Okay. I just want to remind everyone, feedthebadger.com/support if you want to support the show. And when you said something, Brian, you said, who is the enemy or who is your master? And I was thinking this, but I didn't really have time to say it. Who is the person who is controlling you, right? It is ourselves. Like that is our masters are ourselves, are our own unexamined assumptions, our own unexamined indulgences. It is us. We have met the enemy and it is us. And anybody who says any different is trying to sell you something. At the end of the day, it is our own unexamined assumptions that we need to deal with. We need to wrestle with. And I don't know yes, we are in the algorithms black books. Yes, we have a whole alphabet soup of agencies gunning for us, but also nobody wants to hear that because that means work. And you don't get to judge others, which is obviously a very valuable commodity because all he's done is given his audience confirmation that they're right and that they're right to stand in judgment of others. Very popular content there. Me saying, no, actually, probably we're all complicit in this mess. We all have our own little part we need to fix. Not a popular concept. And maybe we should doubt a little more. No, that's not something that sells. But maybe that's a good thing. All right. So once again, feedthebadger.com/support to support the content. I do have some thank yous to give.
Oh, cool.
Yes. We got it. That super chow. So just give me a second because I'm getting a blue screen of death for some reason. Come on, wake up.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, I do have one thank you. The next one, I don't know who yet specifically. I could probably guess, but I don't know. So thank you to Richard for $250, completely unrelated.
Thank you, Richard.
Back on the menu, boys.
And I'm waiting for this thing to Am I gonna have to reboot the damn computer?
Oh boy, here we go.
All right, then keep your secrets.
Okay. Has something fucked up on my end now?
No, I'm just waiting to hear from you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear the soundboard okay? Is it working?
Okay, yes. Richard also put through 350. So I guess we got a bit of a tip for
thank you.
Having endured having endured this. Thank you, Richard. Very much appreciated. It's good to act. I think in the end of the day, this was productive.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Like, I'm not complaining.
I mean, it's fascinating to see what other people are doing. Like, instead of presenting an opportunity to think about something in a new way, he is creating a performance around being right and selling his audience a pain point because for whatever reason, the left is starting to feel a little bit wrong lately.
Yep.
And they don't like that. They just want to feel right. I mean, we all, I guess, want to feel right, except me. It feels really uncomfortable. It feels like the wrong, like when you feel right, it feels like there's a foot waiting to fall. You know what I mean? Like, where's the other foot? What's going on?
Well,
I never. Go ahead.
That's because
a woman with a small brain, with a brain a third the size of us. It's science.
Oh God, that's delightful. All right, with that little bit of delicious misogyny, I'm going to say, feedthebadger.com/justthetip if you want to send a message after the show is over. We will read it at the next reasonably similar show. And I'll hand it back to you, Brian, unless you think there's something further.
No, I think that's good. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we talked about in the show today. You'll find a link to the original video in the description if you want to watch it yourself. Make sure we're not taking this dude out of context. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame. And we will talk to you guys in the next video. Let's re-enchant everything.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.